Amara stood outside the auditorium with her hands clenched into fists. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the school in gold light, but her heart was pounding so loud she could barely hear her own thoughts. She looked at the banner, flapping above the doors. National Youth Public Speaking Championship. Her name wasn't on any poster. Her school didn't even officially enter her, but she was here, and she was ready. At least she told herself that over and over again. The morning wind picked up, brushing against her long braids as she stepped forward. The janitor, Mr. Collins, was mopping the front entrance and looked up when he saw her. "You're early," he said, smiling. Amara nodded nervously. "Just wanted to get used to the stage. Big day." He leaned on his mop handle and tilted his head. "You're not on the schedule, are you?" "No," she said, "but I earned my spot, whether they like it or not." He chuckled gently. "That's what I like about you. Fire. Go light it up, girl." She walked past him with a little more confidence, entered the building, and made her way to the backstage area. No one else had arrived yet. The seats were empty. The stage lights dimmed, but the silence comforted her. She had imagined this moment so many times in her bedroom mirror. Sometimes she won the trophy, other times she froze. Today she didn't. Want to think about the second option? She opened her bag and pulled out the worn notebook her grandmother had given her before she passed. Inside were notes, poems, quotes, even prayers, everything that had ever helped her believe she could do this. Her fingers touched the page that read, "Don't whisper when you were born to shout." Amara repeated it under her breath. An hour later, the contestants began to arrive. Most were from elite schools, white kids in suits, girls in heels, all of them surrounded by their coaches and teams. Amara stood alone in a corner with her bag on her shoulder. A few heads turned her way, and someone whispered, "Is she part of the crew?" "No," another replied. "She must be a helper or something. She's in the contest. You're joking, right?" Amara pretended not to hear. She stared at the floor. It wasn't the first time people had looked at her like that. It wasn't the first time she felt invisible. But today she wasn't here to be invisible. She was here to make them see her. One of the judges walked in, a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. His name tag read Dr. Emerson. He glanced around the room, saw Amara, and walked over. "You are Amara Jenkins," she said. He looked through his list. "You're not on here?" "My school didn't submit me. I submitted myself. I qualified in the regionals." Dr. Emerson narrowed his eyes. "You're from Franklin High?" "Yes, I've never seen a competitor from there. First time for everything," she said calmly. He said nothing for a moment, then sighed. "Fine, we're already running late. You'll be in the first round, but don't expect extra time." She nodded. As he walked away, she heard one of the students say, "They're really letting anyone in this year." Her hands trembled as she sat down. She tried to steady her breathing. She thought about her grandmother, again the woman who taught her to speak up even when her voice shook. One by one, students went up to deliver their speeches. Some were good, others were practiced to the point of sounding robotic. The judges clapped politely. The audience applauded with manners. Nothing really moved anyone until it was Amara's turn. Her name was called. The MC hesitated while saying it, like it didn't belong on his tongue. She rose slowly, feeling every stare burn into her. As she walked toward the stage, someone laughed. A soft laugh, but loud enough. Amara stepped up to the mic. The room was big. Hundreds of eyes looked up from their programs. She felt small. For a moment, she almost forgot the first line. Then someone in the front row, a girl from a prep school, smirked and whispered, "She looks so lost." That was the spark. Amara gripped the microphone with both hands and looked out into the crowd. She didn't start with her rehearsed lines. She started with her truth. "When I was 8 years old, my teacher told me to speak softer because my voice was too strong for a girl like me. When I was 10, I learned that strong black girls are seen as threats. And when I was 13, I stopped speaking in class altogether. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because no one wanted to hear it." The room shifted. "I grew up in a neighborhood where people survive on faith and fury. My mama worked 3 jobs so I could stand here today. And I'm standing here not to fit in, but to tell you what it feels like to be unseen, unheard, and underestimated." Her voice grew with every sentence. "People like me aren't expected to win. We're expected to fade into the background, to be janitors, or cleaners, or statistics. But I'm here to tell you, don't confuse silence with weakness. Don't mistake struggle for shame, because every time you laughed at a girl like me, you taught her how to stand taller." She paused. The auditorium was completely silent now. "Today, I don't need your approval. I don't need your sympathy. I only need your attention because the world needs to hear us." She took one step forward. "I am Amara Jenkins, and I speak not for applause, but for every girl who was told she was too loud, too poor, too dark, or too different." As she said her final words, a single clap broke the silence. Then another. Then the entire left side of the auditorium stood up. The sound grew and grew until it felt like thunder. But in the judge's corner, Dr. Emerson leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, face tight. He turned to the MC and whispered something. Amara bowed slightly, left the stage, and walked backstage. Her heart was soaring and shaking all at once. She couldn't tell if it was a victory or the beginning of something worse. One of the organizers walked over quickly. You were not scheduled to speak. That wasn't approved. There might be consequences. What kind of consequences? She asked, her voice calm but stern. I don't know. That depends on the judges. But you should prepare for ... pushback, double quotes. She walked away, leaving Amara alone again. Except this time, the silence didn't feel empty. Mr. Collins, the janitor, stood at the side door. He had watched everything. You did it? He said quietly. Did I? You shook them. That's what matters. She smiled, but it faded as she saw Dr. Emerson speaking with two other judges. One of them looked right at her, then shook their head. She opened her notebook again. The last page had only 2 words. Keep going. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was already being planned to stop her. Something quiet, something dangerous. The claps still echoed in the hall. But somewhere behind them, the real battle had just begun. Amara sat on the edge of the stage, legs swinging slowly, her notebook clutched tightly in her lap. The applause had stopped 10 minutes ago, but the weight of it still rested on her shoulders like a storm cloud refusing to pass. She had delivered the best speech of her life, spoken directly from her heart, and for a brief moment it felt like the world had actually listened. But now came the silence. Now came the doubts. She watched as other contestants huddled in corners, laughing with their coaches, sipping bottled water and snapping selfies in front of the competition banner. None of them looked her way, not even the ones who had clapped. Mr. Collins appeared from behind the curtains again, walking slowly with a paper cup of water in his hand. He handed it to her. Hydrate, superstar, he said, grinning. She took the cup and smiled faintly. Thank you, she whispered. He looked around. They're rattled. I can feel it, especially that Emerson guy. He didn't clap, she said softly. Not even once. No, he didn't, but that's not your fault. That's his. She nodded slowly but didn't speak. After a moment, he added, You shook the room. That's something no trophy can give you. Trophies still matter, she said with a hint of sadness. He gave her a look that said he understood more than she knew. Some doors only open with them. That's the truth. She looked toward the judges' table where Dr. Emerson sat with 2 others, heads bent together in quiet conversation. He tapped his pen on the desk repeatedly, then made a mark on a form. The woman next to him shook her head. Amara didn't know what they were talking about, but she felt the heat of their judgment from across the hall. Backstage, the announcement came for round 2 qualifiers. One by one, names were called: Lila Kensington, Mark Dempsey, Rachel Wong, Trent Masters. For names, for spots, the final slot remained. The announcer hesitated, looked at the judges' table. Dr. Emerson nodded. The 5th and final speaker moving to round 2 is Jennifer Stanton. A long, empty silence filled the backstage. Amara didn't move. She didn't blink. Jennifer, girl in a pink blazer with golden curls, jumped up with a squeal. Yes, I knew it. Amara waited. Nothing more was said. No 6th name. No second chance. She stood up slowly, walked toward the MC. Excuse me, she said. There's been a mistake. I qualified at regionals. I was allowed to speak. I was told the judges would evaluate. The MC didn't even meet her eyes. I'm sorry. The panel has made their decisions. It's final. But ma'am, please step back. She looked at the panel. Dr. Emerson's face was blank, cold, unreadable. She turned back to the MC. I'd like to speak with someone in charge. Please. The MC sighed, muttered something into his walkie-talkie, and walked off. Minutes later, a woman in a gray suit arrived. Her ID badge read Regional Director Lisa Hammond. What seems to be the issue? She asked politely, though her tone was tired. I'm Amara Jenkins, she began. I qualified on merit through regional voting. I was allowed to speak, but I wasn't called for round 2. Lisa nodded. Yes, we're aware. But the judges determined that your speech, while passionate, did not meet the competitive criteria for advancement. What criteria? Structure, precision, use of rhetorical devices. Amara stepped closer. So being real, being honest, doesn't count. Lisa offered a tight smile. Emotion is important, but this is a competition, not a poetry slam. The words sliced through her like ice. Before she could respond, a familiar voice came from behind her. What's going on? It was Mrs. Patel, her English teacher from Franklin High. She had just arrived, having taken a bus to surprise Amara and watch her second-round speech. Amara turned. They cut me. What? She said sharply. How? The judges said. I wasn't competitive enough. Mrs. Patel frowned deeply and turned to Lisa. I'd like to see the score sheet. I'm afraid that information is confidential, Lisa replied. The panel's decision is final. Final doesn't mean fair, Mrs. Patel snapped. Lisa took a breath. Your student made a strong impression, but rules are rules. She can try again next year. Amara's throat tightened. Next year, she repeated, almost choking on the words. As Lisa walked away, Amara looked down at her notebook. Her hand clenched around it so tight the paper. CRINKLED. Mrs. Patel placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm so sorry. I should have come sooner. Amara blinked back the tears. They never planned to let me through. I was never really part of it. That's not true. It is, she said. They let me speak just so they could say they were fair, but they never meant to hear me. Mrs. Patel sat with her in the empty backstage hallway. You did more than win. You woke them up, and that's bigger than any award. Amara shook her head. No, not anymore. I need people to see. I need people to know what happened here. Then let's show them how. YouTube, social, let them hear your speech. If the judges won't acknowledge you, the world will. Amara looked at her. I don't have a team. I don't have cameras. Mrs. Patel smiled. But I have a phone. I have a following of teachers. We can start small. Just then, Mr. Collins walked over. I filmed the whole thing from the side of the curtain, he said. Hope you don't mind. It was too powerful to lose. He handed her a small flash drive. This belongs to you. Amara stared at it in disbelief. You filmed it, Crystal. Clear audio too, he said proudly. Mrs. Patel grinned. Then it's time. That night they uploaded the video with a simple title, What They Didn't Want You to Hear, Amara Jenkins' full speech. They added hashtags like #VoiceUnheard and #LetHerSpeak. By midnight, it had 1,200 views. By morning, it had 50,000. Then it was on the school district's Facebook page. A local news anchor retweeted it. Then a radio station shared it. The next evening, Amara got a call from a woman at the National Youth Speaker Alliance. Is this Amara Jenkins? Yes, I watched your speech. I have no idea how the judges let you go. Would you consider coming to our event next week as a featured youth guest? Amara blinked. Yes, of course. But before she could finish, a ping came from her inbox. Then another. Then dozens. Her DMs exploded. Parents, students, reporters, and one from a name she didn't expect. It simply read, You were never supposed to win that competition, and you need to be careful. There's more to this than you think. Amara stared at the message. The username was hidden. The account had no profile picture, just a single message. But something about it felt real. She called Mrs. Patel and read it to her. Do you think it's a prank? Amara asked. Mrs. Patel paused. I don't know, but if someone's trying to scare you now, it means they're scared of you. Next morning, her principal called her into the office. He looked nervous. Amara, he said, we've received a call from the regional board. They're accusing you of violating contest rules by uploading a video without approval. They're considering banning you from future events. Her jaw dropped. What? They say it damages their reputation. Damages, she repeated. I told the truth. I believe you. But they're powerful, and they don't like being questioned. She stood up. Then they picked the wrong girl to silence. That night, she posted again. I was disqualified. I was told I didn't belong. Now they want to erase me because I spoke too loudly, but I won't be quiet anymore. They don't get to define what's worthy. You do. So if my voice moved you, help me amplify it. She included the full story of what happened. Within hours, the post went viral. By the next day, national outlets picked up her story. Comments flooded in. Donations poured into a scholarship fund Mrs. Patel had set up. Even a few celebrities reposted her speech. But then, her phone buzzed again. A blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. A male voice whispered, You're playing with fire. Walk away or you'll wish you had. Click. She stood frozen. For the first time she felt real fear. What had she stepped into? And who exactly was trying to shut her down? She looked at her notebook, then at the camera on her phone. She knew what she had to do, even if it meant risking everything. The morning after the blocked call, Amara sat quietly in her bedroom, staring at the ceiling. The warning still echoed in her ears. You're playing with fire. Her heart raced every time her phone buzzed. Every unknown number made her stomach twist, but deep inside, she knew one thing: this wasn't the time to hide. Mrs. Patel texted her at 8 a.m. sharp. Don't panic. We've got this. Meeting at the school at 10. Bring everything. Mr. Collins followed minutes later. Don't post anything else for now. We need to be smart. At 10. Amara walked into the school library. It was quiet, empty, but the air felt thick with something she couldn't name. Mr. Collins, Mrs. Patel, and a third person she didn't recognize sat around a table. The stranger stood up and offered a warm smile. Amara, I'm Camille Torres. I work with the Equal Access Youth Advocacy Foundation. Your story was sent to us yesterday. I flew in from D.C. last night. Amara blinked. You came, just for me. I came because your voice just shook a system that's been silent for too long. Camille slid a manila folder toward her. You're not alone. What they did to you? It wasn't just unfair. It was illegal. You qualified. You followed all rules. And your disqualification appears to be personal, not procedural. Amara slowly opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots, statements from former competitors, and 3 different anonymous emails accusing the regional board of favoring private school students and quietly eliminating troublemakers. One email read, We were told not to advance any candidates who may challenge authority or go off script. Amara looked up. They had a script. Camille nodded. They didn't want stories like yours. They wanted clean, palatable speeches, ones that made donors clap. Yours made people think. Mrs. Patel crossed her arms. So what do we do now? We file a formal complaint. Camille said. We demand public answers, and if they retaliate, We sue. Amara's head spun. This is bigger than I thought. Most changes, Camille replied gently, and it usually starts with one voice. Mr. Collins pulled out a USB stick. What you now be there, we'll submit this as proof. No edits, just truth. They worked for hours, drafting statements, organizing emails, documenting every moment from the day of the speech. Camille handled everything like a lawyer, calm and focused. But Amara couldn't shake the unease in her stomach. That phone call, it felt like more than a threat. It felt like a warning from someone watching closely. At 3 p.m., Amara stepped outside for air. The schoolyard was empty, the summer heat pressing against her skin. She reached for her phone and checked her messages. Nothing. Then, just as she turned back toward the doors, she noticed something strange. A black car, tinted windows, parked across the street. It hadn't been there earlier. No one inside moved. It didn't feel like coincidence. She hurried back inside. There's a car outside. I think someone's watching. Camille didn't flinch. She walked to the window, peeked out, and nodded. Don't look again. Just stay inside. I'll make a few calls. Mrs. Patel's face darkened. They're not just trying to silence her. They're trying to scare her. Mr. Collins added, well, it won't work. Camille pulled out her phone. I'll arrange a car to take Amara home tonight. Safe, unmarked. We'll also notify the local police, just in case. That night, Amara sat with her mom at the kitchen table, both of them staring at the laptop. Her mother hadn't said much in the past week, overwhelmed by the sudden spotlight on her daughter. But tonight, she finally spoke. When your father marched in the 90s, she said softly, they tried to scare him too. They called the house left threats, but he marched anyway. Amara looked at her. He never told me that. He didn't want you to carry his pain, but now, maybe you need to carry the fight. Amara swallowed hard. What if it's too much? Her mother reached across the table. Then we carry it with you. The next morning, the complaint was filed. Camille delivered it in person to the board's regional office, then forwarded copies to the press. Within hours, news outlets picked it up. Teen speaker claims discrimination at state championship, disqualified for telling the truth. Amara Jenkins speaks out. Did the judges silence a voice that was too real? Social media erupted again. People reposted her speech. Public figures called for an investigation. Students from other schools began to share their own stories. I was told to cut a paragraph about racism. They said my topic was too controversial. They warned me to keep it light. The hashtags #LetHerSpeak and #AmaraJenkins trended nationally. Then, just 2 days later, Dr. Emerson released a public statement. We deeply regret any confusion or distress caused. The judging process was conducted with professionalism and fairness. We welcome feedback, but we also stand by our commitment to maintaining standards. Camille rolled her eyes, reading it. This is their way of pretending to care without admitting anything. But Amara wasn't angry. She was calm, clear. She made a video response. Just her. No edits. She stared into the camera. I was told my truth wasn't structured enough. That my voice didn't fit their rules. But I ask, whose rules? Who decides? What stories are allowed to be heard? I wasn't alone. I'm still not alone. You tried to disqualify me, but you just amplified me instead. The video went viral in 8 hours. Over 2 million views. National anchors requested interviews. Late night, hosts quoted her speech. Universities contacted Mrs. Patel asking if Amara would consider applying early. But in the shadows, something darker brewed. Camille received an anonymous envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside were 3 things. A grainy photo of Amara getting into a car, a printed message, shut her down or she goes down. A USB drive labeled confidential. Camille didn't plug it in. She handed it to law enforcement. The FBI opened a file. Cyber threats, they said. They would investigate. Still, Camille warned everyone. Watch your steps. Don't be alone. Someone doesn't want this exposed. Amara started getting anonymous DMS again. You're a fraud. You're embarrassing. Your school? Stop before you're stopped. But Amara didn't break. She kept speaking. She was invited to give a TED Youth Talk. She accepted. She began visiting other schools, encouraging students to speak their truth, even if it made people uncomfortable. One day, a girl at a school came up after her speech. They cut my brother last year. He was the only black kid in the competition. They said he didn't fit the mold. He gave up after that. Amara hugged her. Tell him I didn't win either. But look where I am now. A month after filing the complaint, Camille received a call. You'll want to sit down for this. The attorney on the other end said, What is it? Camille asked. We pulled internal emails. Got access to judge's notes. Emerson. He wrote something disturbing. What? The lawyer paused. He marked Amara's form with a handwritten note. Too raw, too racial. Will trigger complaints from our donors. Do not advance. Camille's blood ran cold. They had proof. Real proof. She called Amara immediately. We've got him, she said. Then what happens now? Amara asked. We take it to court. We expose everything. But just as Camille ended the call, another email arrived. This one was addressed directly to Camille. Subject line, stop. No text. just a video attachment. She clicked play. It was shaky footage of Amara walking home alone. A voice whispered on the video, "She's not safe." Camille's hands trembled. She hit record on her phone and called the FBI. They've crossed a line. Now it wasn't just about free speech, it was about protection. The fight had entered a new phase, and someone out there was getting desperate. Amara's voice had become a movement, but now, someone wanted to silence her. Permanently. The FBI arrived just after midnight. Camille had called them as soon as the video ended. She played it again for the agents, her voice shaking but steady. "They're following her, watching her home. This isn't a threat anymore, it's surveillance." The agent leading the response was a tall woman in her early 40s named Agent Nia Whitfield. She took everything seriously from the moment she stepped inside. "We'll assign a plainclothes officer to her neighborhood," she said. "But if this escalates again, Amara may need to relocate temporarily." Camille nodded. "She's just a kid. She's a symbol now," Agent Whitfield replied. "Symbols attract both protectors and enemies." The next morning, Camille broke the news to Amara and her mother. The house was tense. Amara sat on the couch gripping her phone like it was a lifeline. "I don't want to leave my school," she said. "Or my friends. Or you, Mom." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but she stayed strong. "Baby, we don't have to run, we just need to be smart. If you go somewhere safe for a while, it's not giving up, it's surviving." Am's voice was small. "But if I leave, do I still get to speak?" Camille stepped in. "You'll speak louder than ever." They arranged for Amara to stay with a distant cousin in a gated community nearby. Her location would be known only to Camille, Agent Whitfield, and her mother. The school was informed discreetly that she was taking a leave for medical reasons. On the outside, everything looked calm. But behind the scenes, the storm kept growing. Camille and the legal team leaked part of the handwritten note Dr. Emerson had written. "Too raw, too racial. Will trigger complaints from donors." Within hours, it hit major news networks. Breaking judges, racist note, exposed in speech controversy, do not advance how a young girl's truth was. Silence to please donors. Dr. Emerson went silent. The board refused interviews. Protests erupted outside the state speech committee's office. Signs read, "Let the truth speak, and we are all Amara." Meanwhile, Amara gave her first live interview from her cousin's house. Her face lit by soft lighting, her voice steady. "I'm not trying to be famous," she said. "I just wanted to speak, and they punished me for it." Viewers flooded the station with support. One email read, "My daughter cried, listening to you. Thank you for standing up for all of us." But while love poured in, so did hate. Camille began receiving threatening emails daily. Amara's school's voicemail filled with anonymous messages, heavy breathing, slurs, distorted recordings of her speech played backwards. And then, one night, Amara's cousin knocked on the guest room door. "There's a drone outside." Amara jumped out of bed and pulled back the curtain. A small black drone hovered just beyond the fence. Its camera pointed straight at the window. Camille arrived 10 minutes later, and the drone had vanished. "We need to move again," she said. Amara shook her head. "No, I'm done hiding. They can fly all the drones they want. I'm speaking next week at the National Youth Forum. I'm going." Camille tried to protest, but Amara cut her off. "I'm not afraid anymore." The forum was a national event held once a year in Washington, D.C. It featured the most powerful young voices from across the country. Amara had been invited before the scandal. After everything went public, the organizers offered her the main stage the night before she left. She sat with her mom one last time on the front porch of their home, now guarded by security. "Why me?" Amara whispered. "Because you didn't bend," her mom replied. "You didn't water yourself down for their comfort." Amara looked out at the dark sky. "They tried to erase me. And instead," her mother said, "they made you unforgettable." The next morning, Camille and Agent Whitfield escorted her onto the plane. She wore a black hoodie, sunglasses, and a quiet fire behind her eyes. At the conference hall in D.C., the energy buzzed. Students from every state were gathered. The organizers announced her session would close the forum. Over 3,000 people in person, millions watching online. As the hour approached, Camille stood backstage with her. "You don't have to hold back. Not anymore." Amara smiled. "I won't." When her name was called, the audience erupted in applause. But as she stepped onto the stage, a screen behind her flickered. For a split second, instead of the event logo, an image of Amara's house appeared taken from a high angle. The tech crew scrambled. The image vanished. A man on a headset whispered frantically, "We've been breached." Amara looked back at Camille, who nodded once. "Speak anyway." Amara took a deep breath, walked to the mic, and waited. The crowd went silent. Then she began. 2 months ago, I stood on a stage in my own state and was told my voice didn't fit the rules. I was told my pain was too real, my history too raw, my truth too loud." She looked around at the audience. "But I'm still here. I'm still speaking." She paused. "They didn't just disqualify me. They tried to define me. But I'm done being edited for their comfort." The crowd erupted, and then she told the whole story, from the mocking faces during auditions, to the blocked call warning her to stop, to the drone outside her window. She spoke for every kid who had ever been silenced. Every student told their truth was too much. Every person who had been punished for being real. She ended with a whisper. You wanted me quiet. You made me a voice. The audience gave her a standing ovation that lasted 3 full minutes. Backstage, Camille cried quietly, but not everyone clapped. A man in the back row stood silently, eyes fixed on Amara. He wore a gray suit. No badge. No emotion. Camille saw him. So did Agent Whitfield. She pulled out her phone and took a picture. We need to run a trace, she whispered after the speech. Amara met with journalists, shook hands with students, took pictures with kids who said she made them feel seen. But when she went to change backstage, her bag was missing. Security scrambled. They found it dumped in a trash bin nearby, nothing inside but her water bottle and a torn notebook page. The message scribbled in red ink. This doesn't end at the mic. Camille tightened her grip on Amara's shoulder. We're filing federal charges now. Later that night, Camille called a press conference. She presented the threats, the footage, the audio, the notes. She named Dr. Emerson. She read his quote. She demanded his resignation and the full federal investigation into the board. She finished with this. They thought they were silencing a girl. They were wrong. Amara Jenkins has become the voice of a generation. Amara watched it from her hotel room. She sat quietly for a long time. Then she looked at her phone. A new message. No name. Just a question. Still feel safe. She stared at it, then blocked the number, and typed one word into her notes app, louder. The next morning, she woke to 6 missed calls. And a new headline. State Board Judge found dead, investigation launched. The news spread like fire. Judge Alan Bricks found dead in his home, suspected heart attack, but foul play not ruled out. Amara's hands trembled as she held her phone, staring at the article. She read it twice, then a third time, hoping it would suddenly change. But the headline stayed the same, bold and final. She'd barely slept the night before, after receiving that text, still feel safe. And now this. Camille rushed into the hotel room minutes later, phone glued to her ear. Her voice was sharp, layered with urgency. I understand, but she's not going anywhere without federal escort, she said to whoever was on the other end. When she hung up, her face was pale. That judge, she was one of the 3 who signed off on your disqualification, she said softly, blinked. You think it's connected? Camille didn't answer right away. Then finally, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Outside the hotel, news vans were lining up. Protesters stood with signs in support of Amara. Others whispered conspiracy theories. She brought down a judge. This is bigger than a speech. The whole board is dirty. Agent Whitfield arrived an hour later with more agents and a quiet warning, you need to be moved. Again, the threat level is rising, but Amara refused. I haven't even spoken to the press yet. I'm not hiding anymore. Camille agreed to a compromise. They would allow Amara to attend a nationally broadcast interview that evening, only if it was inside a secure studio. With agents nearby, Amara nodded. I'll say what they're afraid of. I'm done whispering. That afternoon, she sat in the dressing room at the news studio, staring at herself in the mirror. Her eyes looked older, heavier, like someone who had seen more than a girl her age should. But she didn't flinch. She wore the same yellow shirt she wore on the day of her original speech, the one where it all began. A reminder that this fight wasn't just hers now. A soft knock at the door. It was Maya, the anchor who would be interviewing her. Maya was a black woman too, one of the few on national primetime, and her eyes held something rare, respect. I'm proud of you, Maya said. Speak with fire. Amara smiled. I will. The cameras rolled, the lights brightened, and the red on-air sign lit up. Maya welcomed the audience, briefly recapping Amara's story before turning to her. You've been threatened, silenced, even forced into hiding. But tonight, the world is listening. What do you want them to hear? Most. Amara didn't blink. That I never stopped speaking, even when they stopped listening. She recounted everything, what the judges said, how she was disqualified, the threats, the drone, the dead judge. Do you believe someone is trying to silence you permanently? Maya asked. Yes. The studio went dead quiet. Amara leaned closer to the mic. They don't fear my voice. They fear the truth I carry in it. The segment went viral within minutes. Social media exploded. Celebrities posted her quotes. Activists demanded a full federal probe into the state speech board. Politicians weighed in. Half praised her, half dodged the topic. That same night, Camille and Amara returned to their secure apartment. It wasn't really home, but nothing was anymore. Amara curled up on the couch, watching reruns of cartoons she used to love. Her laughter was quiet, distant. Camille sat beside her. You did great tonight. Amara nodded. But it's not over, is it? No, not even close. Camille's phone buzzed. She glanced down and froze. A video file had been sent from an unknown number. It was shaky footage recorded from what looked like a surveillance camera. The image showed someone sneaking into the judge's garage the night before he was found dead. Their face was obscured, but in the background a voice could be heard. It was distorted but clear enough. She's ruining everything. We have to stop her before the hearing. Camille played it again. then called Agent Whitfield immediately. "We have audio. Someone planned this." The FBI began tracing the source. They found the IP address was from inside the city, from a public library. No security footage there. Dead end. But they had a voice sample now. The next morning, Camille took Amara to a courtroom downtown, not for a trial, but to meet with civil rights lawyers who had filed a class action suit on behalf of students, who claimed the state speech board had silenced them for years. Amara's case would now become Exhibit A. She sat at the front of the courtroom. Her name was written on a folder in bold black ink. Amara Jenkins, primary witness. Lawyers thanked her. One even cried, "Your courage is changing lives." Amara managed a small smile, but as she stood to leave, someone shoved a white envelope into Camille's hand and disappeared into the crowd. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was of Amara. Sitting in her hotel room, taken from across the street. A red X was drawn over her face. Camille didn't speak. She just grabbed Amara's arm and marched her outside. "We're moving again." This time, the FBI placed them in an out-of-state safe house, a cabin in a quiet, snowy town. Amara felt like a prisoner in her own story. She missed her home, her school, her friends. She missed walking freely, laughing without checking windows. And worst of all, she missed the mic. She whispered to Camille one night, "What if I never get to speak again?" Camille looked at her for a long time, then pulled out her phone. "We'll do something bigger. Online. Unstoppable. No judge can cancel the internet." They began planning a live-streamed global speech event. One voice, one truth. Amara would speak from a secure location. Her speech would be broadcast simultaneously on every major social platform, backed by celebrities and activists. Millions were expected to watch. They set the date, prepared the speech, built the platform. 3 nights before the event, Camille left the cabin to get groceries. She never came back. Amara waited for hours, called, texted. Nothing. She finally called Agent Whitfield, but her voice was cold. "She didn't check in with us either." Amara froze. "What do you mean?" She was supposed to report back before leaving. She never did. The next day they found Camille's car on the side of a forest road empty. Her purse was still. Inside her phone was missing. The police combed the area. No sign of her. Amara didn't cry. She just stared out the window. Fists clenched. She whispered to herself, "They think I'll be scared." She turned and looked into the camera she had set up for her speech rehearsal. "They're wrong." That night, she opened her laptop and typed a single tweet. "They took my speech, then tried to take my life. Now they've taken Camille. This ends now. I speak in 3 days. Watch me." It went viral in 15 minutes. The air inside the cabin felt colder now. Not because of the snowy wind outside, but because Camille was gone. The silence she left behind was heavy. Amara hadn't slept all night. Her heart beat fast, and her mind raced with questions. Was Camille taken? Did she leave on her own? Was she hurt? Or worse, the safe house was no longer safe. Agent Whitfield arrived just after sunrise. Her face was calm, but her eyes weren't. She looked at Amara and said quietly, "We have no signs of struggle at the vehicle, but we're treating it like an abduction." Amara stared at her. "What are you doing to find her?" "We've deployed drones, dogs, and heat scanners across the forest perimeter." Her car was found locked. No footprints, no broken windows. "Someone knows how to erase evidence," Amara whispered, "just like the people trying to erase my voice." Whitfield sighed. "You still plan to do the live stream, yes?" Amara replied without blinking. "Even if I have to speak alone." Later that day, Amara sat at the edge of the cabin porch, bundled in a coat too big for her. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the same hidden number. "Cancel the speech, or she disappears forever." Attached was a photo. It was Camille blindfolded, tied to a chair, her mouth taped. Her head was tilted forward like she was unconscious. Amara's chest tightened. Her hands shook so hard she dropped the phone. Whitfield stormed outside when she saw Amara collapse to her knees. She picked up the phone and saw the image. For a second, her breath caught too. "We'll trace it," she said. "Don't lose hope." But Amara's heart was breaking. This wasn't a movie. This wasn't some online trend. This was real. Camille, the one person who stood by her from day one, was being used as bait to silence her. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She replayed the photo in her head again and again. Her brain ached from overthinking. Then she remembered something. The shadow behind Camille in the photoette looked like bars. Like a window, but not from a house. It looked more like a storage unit. She got up and pulled out her laptop. She searched for abandoned storage facilities near the place where Camille's car had been found. 2 popped up. One was just a 15-minute drive from the forest road. She didn't tell anyone, not even Whitfield, because deep inside she knew this was something she had to see for herself. At dawn, she left a note behind. "I'm going to find her. Please don't stop the live stream if I don't return." Then she slipped out through the back trail of the cabin with a flashlight and a printed map. Her heart pounded with fear, but her legs didn't stop moving. She reached the storage facility just after sunrise. It was rusted, covered in snow, and looked abandoned. Some doors were bent, others broken. She crept past them one by one, whispering Camille. Nothing. Until Unit 14 she heard it. a soft noise like something falling, or someone struggling. She dropped to her knees and peered under the metal door. Nothing but shadows. Then another sound. A soft cry. Camille, Amara whispered. No reply. She yanked the handle, but it was padlocked. She ran to the edge of the property and found a piece of concrete. She returned and slammed it against the lock again and again. Her hands bled. Her arms ached, but she didn't stop. Finally, the lock cracked. She pulled the door open. Inside was dark and smelled like dust and metal, and in the corner there she was Camille, still tied, still blindfolded. Amara rushed forward and tore off the tape, untying her arms and whispering, I got you, I got you. Camille was weak but awake. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. It was a trap. Before she could finish, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. Amara spun around. 3 masked men stood at the doorway. One of them pointed at her. She couldn't wait, idiot. Camille tried to stand but fell back. Run, Amara. But Amara didn't move. She stood up tall, fists clenched, eyes locked on them. You're scared of me, aren't you? She said. That's why you wear masks. The tallest man laughed. Scared? No. Annoyed. Maybe. You want me to cancel my speech? No. We want you to disappear before it ever happens. Suddenly, the loud roar of an engine cut through the air. A black SUV crashed through the fence at the edge of the lot. FBI agents jumped out. Freeze. Drop your weapons. The men tried to run but were taken down within seconds. Amara dropped to the ground, gasping, heart pounding. One of the agents pulled her up and said, Thank God you left a map in your bag. We traced your route. Camille was rushed to the hospital. Minor injuries, dehydrated but alive. The FBI arrested the 3 men. All of them were connected to a secret internal group known as The Shield, a corrupt network inside the State Board that had worked for years to suppress dissenting student voices. They believed that students who spoke out against inequality could disturb peace and undermine patriotic values. Amara was their biggest threat, and now, she was also their downfall. That evening, Amara stood outside Camille's hospital room. Camille waved her inside. You saved my life. Camille whispered, double quotes, No, you saved mine first. Amara said, Now we save the rest of them. They held hands, silent for a moment, then Camille smiled. You still ready for that live stream? Amara grinned, now more than ever. The team worked nonstop for the next 2 days. Final rehearsals, camera, setups, streaming permissions from every platform, backups on backups. The world was waiting. People from 110 countries had already registered to watch. School students, teachers, celebrities, activists, even politicians. On the morning of the event, Amara sat alone in the makeup room. She looked at herself again. The same girl who once shook in fear on stage, now preparing to speak to the world. Camille entered. It's time. They walked to the stage together. The room was silent but buzzing with energy. Lights dimmed. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Amara closed her eyes. 7, 6, 5. She thought about every insult she heard. 4. Every laugh from the audience that day. 3. Every time someone said she was too loud, too emotional, too black. Every time someone told her she wasn't enough. 1. The lights came up, and Amara stepped forward to the mic. She opened her mouth to speak, but the screen behind her suddenly flashed. Red. Urgent. Security breach detected. Live stream compromised. The stream cut. The stage went completely black. The spotlight vanished. The audience gasped. Amara stood frozen in the darkness. Around her, the tension was sharp like broken glass. Camille jumped from her seat near the side of the stage and rushed up toward her. Technicians whispered frantically in their earpieces. The main screen, which was supposed to broadcast Amara's voice to the world, now showed only static and a warning message. Breach detected. Feed suspended. Attempting to restore, but nothing restored. Camille grabbed Amara's arm. We've been hacked. Amara's voice shook. By who? I don't know, but someone really doesn't want you to speak. The crowd murmured restlessly. Phones in the front row buzzed, people trying to open the stream, checking YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. All platforms were down for the event. Even the backup streams were cut. The speech was gone. A tech ran up. It wasn't just the live stream. It was a targeted sabotage. All of Amara's files were wiped from our servers. Her script, her documents, everything. It's like someone deleted her completely. Camille's face drained of color, but we had 3 backups. Gone. Every one of them. They didn't just want to stop the speech. They wanted to erase the girl giving it. Amara turned to look at the confused audience. Some people stood. Others looked around, unsure if the event was over or just paused. Somewhere in the back, someone started clapping slowly. Then others joined in. Confused, unsure, but supportive. A chant started, in the back row. Let her speak. Let her speak. Amara felt something burn in her chest. Not fear, not anger. Something stronger. Resolve. She turned to Camille. Get me a mic. Camille blinked. What? I'm not reading a script anymore. I'm going to speak from my soul. The crew stared. One of the audio guys hesitated, then handed her a wireless microphone. There's no recording feed. Amara, we can't even broadcast this. She stepped forward. Then the people here will carry my voice. The lights slowly returned. The screens stayed dark, but the energy returned to the room. Amara stood at the edge of the stage. She took a breath, then another, and then she spoke. My name is Amara Fields. Some of you laughed at me when I held this mic the first time. Some of you still think I don't belong here. Too dramatic, too loud, too emotional, too black, too different. The room went still. Her voice rose. But I've learned that when you're too anything for people, it's often because you're just enough for change. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I was mocked. I was told my voice was wrong. My pronunciation, my passion, my truth. I've been chased, threatened, followed, hacked, and silenced. But you can only silence someone when they give up, and I refuse. More people stood up. I speak not just for myself. I speak for every black girl who stood at a mic and was laughed at. Every kid who was told they didn't sound right. Every student told to sit down, stay quiet, blend in. People started clapping. I speak for the girl who changed her voice in class just to be accepted. The boy who hid his accent. The student who translated pain into perfect grammar because that's what they thought intelligence looked like. Tears welled in the eyes of many in the audience. I'm not a mistake. I'm not an experiment. I'm not your punchline. I'm I. The future, and the future doesn't whisper, it roars. The room exploded in applause. Even the judges, seated near the front, stood up. One of them had tears in her eyes. Another was shaking his head in disbelief, clapping harder than anyone. Then, suddenly, Camille's phone buzzed. A new link had been sent by an anonymous server. Live now. Amara's speech recovered. Stream Camille. Clicked it. Somehow someone had recorded Amara's speech from a hidden offline cam, and it was now going viral. Over 300,000 viewers were watching live. The entire speech was being streamed. Subtitles and all. Amara kept speaking, not even knowing. It was going out to the world. In this world, they teach us to shrink, to become small enough to fit their comfort. But I'm done shrinking. I'm done apologizing for the sound of my skin. People in the audience cried now. Total silence except for her voice. Freedom doesn't begin with noise. It begins with courage. And if this moment is the only one I ever get, I will make sure it echoes. She finished her speech with one sentence that would later be quoted on posters, murals, and newspaper headlines around the world. They tried to bury me under silence, but they didn't know I was a seed. As she put the mic down, the crowd leaped to their feet. A standing ovation, people shouting, crying, hugging each other. Amara turned and walked off stage, tears in her eyes, unsure whether she had made history or just poured her soul into the void. Camille rushed to her, holding her phone. You were live, Amara. Someone recovered it. Millions are watching right now. You're trending in over 40 countries. What? You didn't just speak to this room, you spoke to the world. Amara dropped to her knees, overwhelmed. But the moment was short-lived. A security guard ran into the backstage hallway. Ma'am, you need to see this. They followed him to the green room TV. On the screen was a breaking news alert. Massive data leak. Secret files from state school board expose systemic racial discrimination. Footage showed files, videos, and emails being uploaded online. Anonymous. Whistleblowers.confessions.hidden curriculum. Documents.secret grading biases. Private chat logs from teachers mocking students' accents and names. It was all there. Camille's eyes widened. It's happening. But Amara was speechless. Then another notification buzzed on her phone. A private message from the same mysterious server. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 begins now. Her hands trembled as she clicked it open. Inside was a video. A blurry recording. She hit play. A man's voice spoke. You were never supposed to find out. We set the system up this way so your kind stayed quiet. But she's different. She's dangerous. It was one of the state board leaders. His face in full view. His voice clearly captured. And beside him another person in the shadows. A woman. She stepped into the light. Camille gasped. It was one of the judges from tonight's event. The one who cried during Amara's speech. Double agent. Inside Alor hidden enemy. Before Amara could process it, the screen went black again. Amara couldn't breathe. She stared at the dark screen. The last message repeating in her mind like a warning siren. Be careful who claps for you. Camille sat beside her, her face pale. It was her. She was in the room. She clapped. She cried. Amara's voice trembled, and she lied. In the hallway outside the green room, the air was buzzing. Journalists had already begun swarming the building. Police sirens echoed in the distance. Protesters gathered outside with signs reading, "Let her speak. Justice for Amara, and we hear you." Students from schools across the district were arriving in buses, many holding posters with Amara's face on them. Amara stood. Slowly, they'll try to flip this. Turn me into a distraction while they bury the truth. Camille nodded. They're scared. That's why they're acting so fast. But you have something they don't. What a voice the people trust. A loud knock hit the green room door. It was a journalist from a local outlet. Amara, the newsrooms are going crazy. Everyone wants to interview you. Live. Amara hesitated. They didn't believe me before. They believe you now, the reporter said. And you need to speak before the wrong version of this story spreads. Camille stepped in. She'll do one interview, but it has to be live. No cuts, no edits, and no soft questions. The reporter nodded, agreed. 15 minutes later, Amara sat in a small studio with a camera pointed straight at her. The live stream countdown began. She could see the viewer count rising like wildfire. 100,000, then 400,000, then 1.1 million. She swallowed hard, wiped her palms and nodded. The host leaned forward. We're live in 3, 2, 1. Good evening. Tonight, we're joined by Amara Fields, the student whose powerful speech shook the internet just hours ago, and who now finds herself at the center of a massive scandal involving the state school board. Amara, what happened tonight? Amara looked into the lens. The system cracked. She told the world everything, how her speech files were deleted, the cyber-ratic, the anonymous messages, the leaks, the voice recordings, the betrayal. I stood on that stage ready to give a speech, but instead, I gave them my truth. And somehow, someone out there made sure the truth didn't stay buried. The host leaned closer. Who do you think hacked the stream and erased your files? Amara hesitated. Someone powerful. Someone who's been covering these things for a long time. Do you have names? She looked directly into the lens. I'm not here to accuse, I'm here to reveal. And the documents already leaked are louder than anything I could say. They show racism wasn't a mistake in our school system. It was a policy, hidden, protected, weaponized. Gasps filled the live stream chat. Comments flew by, supportive, stunned, angry. The host nodded. And what about the judge caught in the recording? The one who cried at your speech? Amara eyes darkened. That's the hardest part. She stood with me in public and betrayed me in private. But now the mask is off. The host paused. There's one more thing. A new video just dropped. It's been circulating for the past 5 minutes. Camille rushed in from off-screen holding a phone. It's her, she whispered. The judge. She's released a statement. The host tapped his earpiece. We're going to play the clip now. The screen cut to a dimly lit room. The judge sat at a desk, her face shadowed. My name is Elaine Marsh. Yes, I was in that video. Yes, I was in that room, but it's not what you think. Her voice cracked. I was undercover. Amara leaned forward in shock. Elaine continued. Years ago I discovered the board was hiding data, intentionally marking down students from minority backgrounds, punishing teachers who spoke up. I tried to go public. They threatened my family, so I went quiet. But when I saw Amara's name on the finalist list, I knew. She was different. She had fire. I had to protect her from the inside, Camille whispered. She's not the enemy. The judge's face lit up fully now. I cried at her speech because she reminded me who I used to be. And when that board member whispered that she was dangerous, I hit record. She paused. Now the world knows. The clip ended. The studio went silent. Amara blinked, stunned. So, she was with us. Camille nodded slowly. Looks like it. The host turned to the camera. There you have it, folks. Betrayal, bravery, and a storm of truth shaking the education system to its core. But the night isn't over yet. He looked at Amara. One final question. What's next for you? Amara looked straight into the camera. I don't know. But I do know this: if they thought tonight was the end of my story, they were wrong. This was just the mic check. The stream exploded. But outside, not everyone was cheering. In a sleek black car parked across the street, 2 men sat in the back seat watching the live stream on a tablet. One of them wore a gray suit and a cold stare. He turned to the other. She's too loud, too smart, too close. The second man asked, do we shut her down? The first man tapped a message into his phone. Not yet. Let her shine a little longer, the higher she climbs. He looked out the window toward the crowd gathering in the streets. The harder she fall. A notification popped on his phone screen. Package delivered, Amara's home. He smiled. Let's see how brave she is when the truth finds her doorstep. Meanwhile, back in the studio, Amara and Camille walked out of the building surrounded by students and supporters chanting her name. Amara felt powerful, hopeful. But as she reached her car, her phone buzzed. A video message from a private number. She opened it. It was security camera footage. Her little brother Jameer playing in their front yard. Then a black car pulling up. A man in a gray suit stepping out, walking toward the front door, carrying a box. Jameer staring. The video ended. A voiceover played. You wanted to speak for others, Amara, but what happens when your truth puts them in danger? Her fingers went numb. Camille saw her face. What happened? Amara looked up, tears forming. They're coming after my family. The camera panned out as the crowd kept cheering, completely unaware. But Amara no longer felt safe, because when the system couldn't silence her with shame, it would try to break her with fear. Amara stared at the screen in silence, her brother's face frozen mid-smile, the man in the gray suit turning away from her front door like nothing happened. The small box left behind? Her hand shook as she held the phone. Camille saw the color drain from her face. What did you just see? She asked carefully. Amara didn't speak. She turned the screen toward Camille. The message replayed again. You wanted to speak for others, Amara, but what happens when your truth puts them in danger? Camille's hands clenched. We need to get to your house, now? But as they stepped outside, a group of journalists surrounded them. Amara, are you aware of the new footage? Do you think the education board is targeting you? What do you say to people who think this is all a stunt for attention? Amara looked up, her voice cold and sharp. A stunt doesn't come with threats to my little brother. The crowd hushed. Her eyes scanned the faces. Somebody out there thinks I'll fold if they scare me, but I've already been through fear. I grew up in a system that expected me to fail, and now that I'm finally speaking, they want to make me regret it, but I don't. She pushed past them, Camille on her heels. The car door slammed shut behind her, and they sped toward her home. The neighborhood felt too quiet when they pulled up. Amara's mother was already on the porch, holding Jameer in her arms, a worried look in her eyes. Amara ran up the steps. Are you okay? Her mother nodded slowly. He's fine. A man left a package and drove off. I was just about to call you. Camille stepped forward and picked up the box. No name, no return address. Just a sticker with Amara's name and a red circle drawn over it. Amara's throat tightened. Open it, she whispered. Camille gently peeled back the tape. Inside was a framed picture Mara on stage during her speech. Mid-sentence with red pen slashes across her face. Underneath the photo, in bold black ink, speak again, and we'll cut the mic. Camille froze. Amara's mother gasped. Jameer looked confused. Why is your face scratched out? He asked. Amara pulled him close. It's nothing, baby. Just someone trying to be mean. But inside, her heart was pounding. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was a threat. They took the package inside and called the police. An officer arrived quickly, took the photo, bagged it for evidence, and wrote down everything Amara told him. But when she asked if there was a way to trace who sent it, he hesitated. Without fingerprints or digital clues, this could take time. And if the person's powerful enough to cover their tracks, ... double quotes, he didn't finish the sentence. Amara knew what he meant. They were on their own. That night, Amara didn't sleep. She sat at her window, watching the street. Every car that slowed down made her heart jump. Every creak in the hallway made her stand. Camille stayed on the couch with her, refusing to leave her alone. You're not breaking, Camille whispered. You're rising. And they hate it. Amara looked at her. They're not just after me anymore. What if they go after my mom next? What if they hurt Jameer just to shut me up? Camille leaned forward. Then we take away their power. We don't wait. We go first. The next morning they returned to the same news studio. Amara demanded another live broadcast. The host raised his eyebrows. After what happened, you're still willing to speak. Not just speak, Amara said. Expose. I have more, and it's time people see everything. The room went silent. Camille pulled a folder from her bag. This contains copies of the policies they buried, secret scoring sheets that grade students differently based on zip codes, teacher evaluations that target staff who support diversity, clubs, emails between board members mocking Black and Hispanic students, and we're giving it all to the public. Within the hour, Amara was live again. She didn't read from notes this time. She spoke from memory. Her voice was calm, her tone strong. This isn't about me anymore. This is about every student who sat in the back because they weren't seen. Every teacher who was punished for trying to uplift a kid like me. Every parent who thought they were sending their child to a fair school but didn't know the system was already set against them. She held up one of the emails. This is a board member saying, "Let the loud ones scream, it makes it easier to fail them quietly." The chat went wild. Viewers were crying. Parents were furious. A trending hashtag began. Hashtag scream louder, but just as the broadcast ended, Amara's phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Hello. A distorted voice replied. Wrong move, little girl. The voice continued. You think you're safe behind that mic. You just walked into the fire. You're not going to hear from us again. Then the line went dead. Camille rushed to her side. What is it now? Amara told her everything. They're changing tactics. They're going dark. No more messages. No more warnings. Camille looked serious. Then we stay ahead. We build allies. We put people around you that can't be ignored. Amara blinked. Like who? Camille pulled out her phone and started dialing. There are national reporters watching this now. Civil rights lawyers, politicians. Some of them want in. And we're going to make this bigger than they ever imagined. That night, a new video went viral. A popular senator posted a clip of Amara's speech with the caption, "This young woman has more courage than half our government. I stand with her." Within minutes, other leaders joined. A prominent civil rights lawyer reached out, offering full legal protection. A media company offered to sponsor Amara's own platform. A scholarship foundation pledged to fund her college education and any future legal battles. But it wasn't all good news. Across town, in a private mansion, the gray-suited man watched Amara's face light up every screen. He slammed his fist against the table. We waited too long. Now she's a symbol. His assistant entered the room. Should we release the footage? He paused. Not yet, but get everything ready. She thinks she's untouchable now. Let's remind her what happens to people who fly too close to the sun. The next morning, Amara woke to Camille banging on her door. It's happening. They leaked something. Amara scrambled out of bed. Camille pulled up her phone. On every social media platform, a blurry video was spreading. It showed Amara crying in a bathroom months ago, overheard saying, "I wish I could just disappear." Another clip showed her shouting at a teacher who accused her of cheating. The third was worse. It was from middle school, a school fight where Amara was pushed but pushed back harder. The caption read, "Is this your hero?" Amara sank into the couch. "They're trying to destroy me." Camille sat beside her. "No, they're trying to distract from what you've already exposed. They're scared again. You've rattled them. But this makes me look unstable, dangerous, like I'm lying about who I really am." Camille put a hand on hers. "Then tell the truth. Tell people about those moments. Be human. Be raw. Let them see that you're not perfect but you're real." Amara nodded slowly, and that's when she made the hardest choice of her life. She went live again. Not through a studio, not through a network, but through her phone. She sat on her bed, looked directly into the camera, and said, "They want you to see me crying? So here I am, crying, because I've had moments where I wanted to disappear. I've yelled, I've pushed back, I've been angry, I've been scared, but none of that cancels the truth I spoke." She wiped her tears. "You don't have to be perfect to speak up, you just have to be honest." The video exploded again. Celebrities reposted it. Mental health advocates praised her. Even people who had doubted her before now stood behind her, because what she gave them wasn't just facts or policies anymore. She gave them permission to feel. But as the views crossed 10 million, Amara's phone buzzed one last time. A single message, no number, just one sentence. "Your next mic won't be digital." Amara read it, paused, then stood. Because now, the fight was real, and someone in the shadows was planning something Amara couldn't yet see, but she was ready. Because the girl they mocked had already spoken. Now the world was listening. The wind outside howled like a warning, pushing against the windows of Amara's home as if trying to get in. Inside the room was silent, thick with tension. Amara stared at the message still glowing on her phone. "Your next mic won't be digital." It wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. Camille stood across from her, arms crossed tight, jaw clenched. "They're planning something physical, something in the real world." Amara's voice was steady, but her eyes were tired. "Then we stopped playing defense." The next morning, Amara and Camille arrived at the local community center, where a large press event was scheduled. But this wasn't a press conference Amara had been invited to. This was one she called herself, the community center's manager. A woman named Gloria with silver locks and eyes sharp as razors had seen Amara's last live stream and immediately offered the space. "I've lived here 40 years, she'd said. "I've watched girls like you silenced. Not today." The room filled quickly. Parents, teachers, students, cameras, and police. Camille had insisted on their presence. Just in case, when Amara stepped up to the podium, something felt different. She wasn't nervous, she wasn't shaking, she didn't need to memorize anything. She looked out into the sea of faces and saw something new. Belief, not in her perfection, but in her truth. "There are people watching right now who think I'm still that scared girl hiding in a bathroom. That if they show enough clips of me breaking down, I'll disappear." She took a breath. "But I want to say this for every young black girl who's ever been told she's too loud, too emotional, too angry, or too much. Maybe we are, but that's exactly what they're afraid of." The crowd clapped, some standing, cameras flashed. But behind the crowd, Camille's eyes were scanning. Two men in the back hadn't moved. No phones. No clapping. Just watching. She leaned toward a nearby officer, those two gray jacket, navy cap. "Keep an eye." The officer nodded subtly. On stage, Amara raised a folder. "Inside here are the names of the board members who wrote those emails, who covered up years of discrimination, who signed policies designed to hold back students of color." Gasps echoed. "They thought they'd stay anonymous, but this is the part of the story where we stop whispering and start naming." She handed the folder to a local journalist, live on air. The journalist opened it. "Is this real?" Amara nodded. "Every document has a timestamp and a source. Cross-check it. Publish it. Let the city know who's been holding the knife, behind their backs." Camille noticed one of the two suspicious men reaching for something inside his coat. She moved fast. So did the officers. In seconds, both men were detained and searched. One carried a hidden recording device. The other had a stun gun, unregistered. The police pulled them aside, and the crowd never even noticed, but Camille did, and so did Amara. After the event, as the crowd cleared and reporters scrambled to publish the list of names, Amara sat on the center's back steps. Her hands were finally shaking now. Camille sat beside her. "You all right?" Amara nodded slowly. "I think so, but it's like I can feel them tightening the rope." Camille looked out at the horizon. "Maybe, but you're not in the noose. You're holding the scissors." That night, something unexpected happened. One of the board members on Amara's list, Dr. Leonard Fields, resigned live on television. "I participated in practices I can no longer justify," he said. "This young woman reminded me of the ethics I once claimed to have. I'm sorry." The video went viral. It triggered a domino effect. The next day, 2 more members quit. One posted a public apology and asked to meet Amara privately. Another tried to deny everything, but leaked voice notes shut him down in minutes. But with each resignation, the silence from the most powerful board member, Margaret Langston, grew louder. Camille dug deeper. She found that Margaret had been a key player in passing laws that weakened diversity programs statewide. She had connections in higher offices, political donors, old money. She was the one person who could not afford to fall, and she was the one who hadn't said a word until the email came. Subject: Public Debate Challenge. It was from Langston's team, a formal invitation. Amara versus Margaret. Live. Broadcast across the state. Amara blinked in disbelief. They're baiting you, Camille said. They want you to panic, to say something they can spin. Or they're counting on you freezing. Amara held the letter carefully. Or maybe they think I'll say yes, and it'll be the moment I destroy everything I've built. Camille frowned. So what's the move? Amara stared ahead, her voice low. I say yes. The days before the debate were brutal. Media speculation exploded. Polls showed rising support for Amara, but older voters leaned toward Margaret. Commentators began calling it the culture clash debate. Conspiracy videos surfaced claiming Amara was a paid actor. Others claimed she faked her past, but none of it stopped her. She studied every night, practiced hard, not with scripts, but with Camille pretending to be Margaret. Camille played her tough, interrupting, undermining, throwing cruel lines that Amara would need to be ready for. You're not preparing for a debate, Camille warned. You're preparing for war. The night of the debate arrived. The stage was set in a massive auditorium. 2 podiums, 1 truth, 1 lie. Cameras everywhere, seats packed. Camille sat front row. Behind her, familiar faces: Mr. Thompson, Principal Rivera, even some students from the competition. The judge, who once ignored her, sat stiff in the back row. He didn't clap, didn't smile, but he was there, and that meant something. When Amara walked out, the room erupted in applause. She wore a simple black suit, hair natural, no jewelry, nothing flashy, just presence, just power. Margaret followed, dressed in expensive gray, confident, cold, calculated. The moderator asked the first question. Miss Amara, what qualifies you to challenge a board president? Amara didn't blink. I lived every policy she signed. I survived the system she built. And unlike her, I never got paid to stay silent. The room buzzed. Margaret responded with a smile. You're passionate, but passion doesn't make policy. I have 27 years of experience. Amara smiled too. Exactly, you've had 27 years. And this is where we are. Maybe it's time someone else got a turn. The debate went on. Amara was fire and calm all at once. Every time Margaret tried to corner her, she turned the moment. Every insult became an opportunity. Every doubt, a point proven. When Margaret accused her of being too emotional, Amara simply replied, and yet I'm still standing here, while your colleagues are resigning. Camille watched the crowd shift, at first polite, then moved, then outraged, then inspired. That inspired. The final question hit hard. Amara, what is it that you ultimately want? She looked into the camera. I want the little girl sitting at the back of a classroom to know she's not invisible. I want schools to see students as futures, not statistics. I want truth to be louder than tradition. And I want those who buried our voices to feel what it's like to finally be drowned out. Applause shook the walls. Margaret stood frozen. Then the lights cut out. All of them. For 7 seconds. The auditorium was dark, silent. Then a spotlight flickered on Amara's podium, but she was gone. Screams. Camille jumped to her feet. Security rushed to the stage. Marguerite looked stunned, her mic still on. Where did she go? Camille's heart raced. Amara had vanished. But from somewhere backstage, her voice came through, not panicked, not scared, just clear. You can't erase me. The room went quiet again, then more lights came on. She stepped back out, microphone still in hand. I just wanted to show you how it feels to have the lights cut off while you're speaking. That's what you did to us. Every year, every student you ignored, every dream you shut down. She walked back to her podium. Still here? And I'm still talking. The crowd roared. Margaret couldn't even look up. Because in that moment, the girl everyone mocked had taken the one thing Margaret never could. The entire room. And now, the system itself was starting to crumble. But what Amara didn't know was that someone watching from the shadows had just activated the next plan. And this time, it wasn't about words. It was about silence. Permanent silence. The cheers from the auditorium still echoed in Amara's ears as she stood quietly in the dressing room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She had done what no one thought she could. She didn't just speak, she took control. Margaret Langston was finished, her power drained in front of live cameras. But Amara didn't feel victory in her chest. Not yet. Something in her gut said the story wasn't over. Camille stood by the door, keeping watch. Security sweep just finished, she said. Everyone's clear. You ready to go? Amara nodded but glanced one more time at her reflection. You think the silence after a fight is louder than the fight itself? Camille tilted her head. Only when the other side ain't done fighting. As they exited the building under heavy security, cameras flashed and reporters yelled questions. Amara waved briefly but didn't stop. Her focus was locked. She and Camille climbed into the black car provided by the network. The driver, a quiet man with a baseball cap pulled low, didn't say much, just nodded and started the engine. Camille frowned. You weren't our driver earlier. The man glanced back. Carl had to leave. I'm covering the night shift. All clear, ma'am. She didn't like it, but didn't push further. The car pulled off into the night. 10 minutes later, Camille looked out the window and realized they weren't heading to the hotel. You missed the turn. The driver didn't respond. Amara sat up straighter. Sir, we're going the wrong way. No answer. Camille reached for her phone. No signal. Amara's hand slipped quietly into her bag, fingers brushing against the small voice recorder she always kept with her. We need to get out, Camille whispered. The driver suddenly locked the doors. Sit back. It'll be over quick. Camille kicked the back of his seat hard. The car swerved. Amara reached over and slammed her elbow into the lock release. But it jammed. The driver turned sharply onto a deserted side road. You should have kept quiet, he muttered. You embarrassed the wrong people. Camille reached across Amara and jammed a pen she'd taken from the debate stage into the driver's shoulder. He screamed, swerved again, and the car hit a stop sign, skidding into a ditch. Smoke rose. The airbags deployed. The doors finally popped open. Amara and Camille crawled out, coughing, blood on Camille's forehead. They didn't wait. They ran into the woods nearby, deeper and deeper until they collapsed behind a thick tree. Camille's breath was ragged. He was going to kill you. Amara trembled, tears slipping from her eyes. I knew they'd tried to discredit me. But this is something else. Camille pulled out her emergency phone, a burner. Signal weak. But there, she called the one person she never thought she'd need to. Detective Harper, a former internal affairs officer, now turned private investigator. He picked up. What's wrong? Camille didn't waste time. They tried to snatch Amara. Car crash. We're near Hollingswood Trail. We need pickup now. Harper responded fast. Stay hidden. I'm tracking your location. 15 minutes. The call cut. Amara looked up at the sky. Why are they this afraid of a girl with a mic? Camille leaned back against the tree. Because the mic's not what scares them. The truth behind it does. 15 minutes felt like a lifetime, but Harper arrived. His SUV's headlights cut through the trees. Get in, he shouted. They didn't hesitate. As he drove off, he handed Camille a file. Found something. The hit wasn't just about silencing Amara, it was a message. Langston's donors are tied to a political pack with federal reach. Your name's been passed around in back rooms all week. They're terrified you'll take this national. Amara stared at the folder. Inside were photos of meetings, leaked documents, and proof of coordinated threats. But one photo made her go still. It was her. 10 years ago, standing outside a courtroom, next to a woman with a scar over her cheek, her mother. Camille looked at her. Amara. That's not your school photo. Amara's hands shook. That was the last day I saw my mother before she disappeared. They said she ran away, that she had a breakdown. Harper nodded grimly. She didn't. She tried to blow the whistle on a racist suspension system your current school board inherited. She had evidence. Then she vanished. Amara felt the air leave her lungs. Why didn't anyone tell me? Harper's voice was low. Because they erased her. On paper, she doesn't exist. I only found this by accident in a sealed file. From a civil rights lawsuit that got buried. Camille leaned forward. If we find out what happened to her, this whole thing could crack open. It's not just about Amara now. It's generational. They tried to silence her mom. Now they're trying to silence her. Harper drove them straight to a safe house on the edge of town. Far from reporters, far from anyone who might be watching. You lay low tonight, he said. Tomorrow, we go deeper. Inside the safe house, Amara sat on the couch, unable to sleep. Her mind spun with images. The debate, the car, her mother. Camille came over with tea. You know what the real victory was tonight? She asked softly. Amara looked up. What? Camille sat beside her. You didn't just speak truth to power. You made power blink, and now they're scrambling. Amara leaned into her shoulder. I'm scared. Camille didn't pretend to be brave. She just nodded. So am I. But fear and courage live in the same body. You just have to decide which one gets the mic. The next morning, the media exploded. News of the failed kidnapping attempt broke across networks. The driver had been arrested but refused to name who sent him. Langston's team denied involvement, but the damage was done. Protesters marched outside the school board building. Students walked out of classes. Parents demanded resignations, but something else happened, too. A whistleblower came forward, a janitor from Amara's old middle school. He appeared on a live stream with hidden documents and videos. Proof that students of color were being suspended for minor offenses while white students got warnings. One video showed a teacher physically blocking a black girl from entering class. The girl was Amara, at age 11. The video went viral, and with it came the final crack. Langston was subpoenaed for a state investigation. She resigned 2 days later. No speech, no apology, just silence. But Amara didn't celebrate, because one file in Harper's folder still haunted her. A signed complaint by her mother, dated 1 month before she disappeared. It was addressed to a man named Richard LaSalle, then a private education lawyer, now a federal judge. Amara stared at his name. If he helped bury this, he's not just guilty, he's protected. Camille looked up. Then we go to the media. Harper stopped her. No, We go to his courtroom. Amara's eyes narrowed. You mean confront him? Harper nodded. Tomorrow, LaSalle is giving a keynote at the State Legal Ethics Conference. If you confront him live, with cameras, with evidence, you'll hit a system higher than Langston ever reached. Camille hesitated. That's not just risky, it's dangerous. Amara stood slowly. Then it's perfect. Because the girl, they mocked. She's coming to the courthouse next, and she's bringing the whole truth with her. But what none of them knew was that Richard LaSalle had already received word. And this time, he wasn't planning to run. He was planning to end the story his way. And someone from Amara's past might be helping him do it. The courthouse buzzed with reporters, students, and protesters holding signs that read "Justice for Truth, Stop the Silence, and We Believe Amara." But Amara didn't feel like a hero. Her palms were sweaty, her heart pounding. In her chest, Camille walked beside her in a black blazer, eyes scanning the crowd for threats. Behind them, Harper followed, carrying a locked briefcase filled with evidence that could bring down a federal judge. LaSalle's speech starts. In 10 minutes, he said, checking his watch. You sure about this? Amara didn't answer. She just looked ahead at the giant wooden doors of the State Legal Ethics Conference, pushed them open, and stepped into history. Inside the grand auditorium, men in tailored suits and women in polished heels sat in neat rows. Cameras were already rolling. A stage was set up with a podium in the center, and standing at it was Judge Richard LaSalle. His hair was whiter than the photo Amara had seen, but the coldness in his eyes was exactly the same. He didn't flinch when he saw her enter. He just smiled faintly and adjusted his tie. Ah, he said into the microphone. Looks like we have guests from the younger generation joining us. Welcome. Some in the crowd turned to see who he meant. Whispers spread like wildfire. Amara kept walking. Past the cameras, past the front row all the way to the stage. The guards didn't stop her. No one moved. Not even LaSalle. She took the other mic from its stand and raised it slowly. You know who I am, she said calmly. So let's not pretend I came here for applause. A ripple moved through the crowd. LaSalle chuckled. Young lady, this is a professional gathering. If you'd like to schedule. I did, she interrupted 10 years ago. When my mother submitted a complaint about racial suspensions in public schools, you were the one who received it. You buried it, and you helped silence her. Permanently, the room froze. LaSalle stepped back slightly. You have no proof of that. Harper opened the briefcase and placed a printed file on the podium. You signed the receipt of evidence. Your signature is here. The judge's eyes narrowed. That proves nothing. Amara's voice shook, but she didn't stop. It proves the beginning of a cover-up. My mother disappeared after sending that complaint. The school board claimed she had a breakdown, but we found records, hidden files, emails. Your approval was required to dismiss her case. You closed it without hearing. LaSalle laughed bitterly. Do you know how many complaints cross my desk? Do you think I remember every desperate story? Amara stepped closer. Maybe not every story, but you remember hers. Because it cost you. And now, I'm here to finish what she started. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters took notes at lightning speed. The moderator stood from his chair. We should take this discussion offline. No, Amara said sharply. We've been offline for too long. This is the only room where the truth can breathe. LaSalle leaned forward, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You don't know what you're doing. You think this ends with me. There are layers to this system. You pull one thread, the whole fabric burns. Amara stared him down. Then let it burn. Suddenly, a woman stood up from the back row. She wore sunglasses and a scarf that covered most of her face. Slowly, she stepped into the aisle. Harper noticed her first. His jaw dropped. Amara, he whispered. Look. Amara turned, her breath caught. The woman removed her sunglasses. The scar was faint, but unmistakable. Her eyes were brown just like Amara's. It was her mother, alive. The room gasped. LaSalle took a step back. Camille reached for Amara's hand, but it was frozen midair. The woman's voice was soft. They told me if I spoke again, my daughter would die. She moved closer to the stage, voice rising. They made me disappear. Moved me from state to state, changed my name. But I watched every day. I saw her grow, saw her speak. And today, I speak to... Eski reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. This contains audio recordings, names, accounts, and wire transfers, every detail of how they paid to bury truth. LaSalle was just one of many. She handed it to Harper, who slid it into his laptop immediately. On the giant screen behind the podium, an audio clip played. LaSalle's voice, bury it, get her fired. If she doesn't shut up, we'll handle it another way. The room erupted, reporters shouted. Security rushed in. LaSalle was pulled from the stage as he shouted denials, face red, eyes wild. This is illegal, fabricated, but no one believed him anymore. Amara turned to her mother. The hug that followed was raw, breaking every soul in that room. 2 lives interrupted by silence, now speaking louder than any courtroom ever had. Camille wiped tears from her eyes. Harper just stared, stunned. I didn't think we'd ever find her, he said. Amara whispered, I didn't think I could do any of this without her. The days that followed were a whirlwind. LaSalle was suspended from the bench. An ethics investigation began at the federal level. Several other judges and education officials were named. Amara and her mother testified before the state legislature. National headlines called it the truth that survived a decade. Amara was offered a full scholarship to 3 different universities, but she didn't accept them. She launched her own nonprofit instead, the Mic Project. Its mission: give silenced students the tools to speak, record, publish, and fight back. Camille joined as her director, Harper became a board advisor, and her mother, she became the first honorary speaker at their founding event. On that night, Amara stood once again before a crowd. The lights were bright, the cameras rolled, but this time, there was no fear in her voice. She smiled and said, "They mocked the black girl at the mic. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't just holding a mic, I was holding history. And today, we pass it forward." The crowd rose. Tears, cheers, and applause. But Amara didn't cry this time, because she finally understood her voice wasn't the end of a fight, it was the beginning of a movement. And the mic, she never let it go.